Usually people who used to hear me, I lecture on love and the basics of psychology based on Jewish principles, and out of that really to understand the depths, what is love about. And I think there is one lecture, one cassette outside, it's called The Pleasure Principle, which is some introduction to this concept. But this time I'm not going to talk about love. I want to talk about communication, which is a total different topic. To start with a nice joke, this is very similar to what you said. Maybe it's too similar, I didn't hear. A wife asked her husband, "Why you never tell me you love me?" So he told her, "I told you that 2 years ago, if there would be any change, I'll let you know." I don't know if it's too similar, but... Now, if we want to understand communication, there is a lot of data, a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise today in communication. They teach it in universities, in courses, etc. But what I'd like to share with you is to see how Jewish tools can change and enhance communication. Because if just to learn communication, there is so much to learn, and which is not necessarily Jewish. This is wisdom, which is important. But I'd like really to put the emphasis on very, very important spiritual rules that would give a total different power and strength and attitude to communication. Therefore, if you would allow me, I want to start with precepts. Okay? We have commandments of communication. So I want to start with the Jewish concepts, starting with spiritual rules. Now, the first principle is respect, to honor and respect the other one. And I just quote to you a very important principle to that. And we should know, how do we really respect each other? But before we learn how to do that, we should know that the basis of communication, you are in the image of God, I'm in the image of God. God respects you, so I should respect you. Now I want to show you two basic concepts of respect. The first concept is to listen to. It's pay attention is I hope its translation is proper. Really to listen to you. Because if I respect you, I care about what you say. Because sometimes when you say, how can I respect you? I mean, who says you deserve respect? And what should I do? Should I applaud to you? Should I stand up when you come into the room? So I want you to know the basic thing of respect, that I care about what you have to say. I unfortunately learned a lot of things from my own failures. And actually this is a very Jewish concept. אין אדם עומד על דברי תורה, אלא אם כן הוא נכשל בהם. So one does not learn until he fails. So unfortunately I failed a lot regarding that, the concept of listening. And I want to share with you my failures. I'm a chess player. So I used to think very fast. So if someone is talking, and in the middle, I'm sure I understand what he wants to say. So I stop him, and I start answering. All right, I got it. Let me talk. And I got this terrible habit for years. And the guy would say, no, listen to me. All right, so I knew what he wanted to say. I showed you I knew. So please, let me save the time. And terrible, stupid discussions. One day, I talked with a very rich person regarding arachim, and we became very friendly. So somehow my bad habits and my bad manners came out. So I allowed myself to stop him as well, right? Again and again, and we are very good friends. So he took it nicely, and then he said, "Let me teach you something. I'll tell you a story." I was sitting in a meeting. So he said, he told me I used to have the same habits like you. And until I learned a lesson, I sat with a meeting with quite a few rich people, discussing a project, investing, big money and so on. At the end of the meeting was a multi-millionaire person who was heading this project. So we sat together, starting discussing that, and all of a sudden came a phone call. A phone call came from his daughter. And she talked to him, she told him that she has to take the dog outside to make his needs. And she doesn't have the key, whatever it is, so what should she do? And for a few 2-3 minutes, he answered quietly and described what to do with a dog, what to do with a key, etc., etc. Okay? So eventually, after the meeting, I came to him. We're friends, so I told him, look, I learned a lot from you about business. So now I'd like to learn another thing for you. I don't understand. Your daughter called you about the dog in the middle of a meeting where the project of $30-40 million are on stake. And you take the time of these 10 people discussing for a few minutes with your daughter about the dog and his needs. Please. You should tell her, look, I'm busy now. Call some other time. Solve the problem. All right? That's it. So why don't you do that? He said, all right. Let's assume I would do that. What do you think would happen? You think she would accept it? In about a few minutes, she'll call again. I didn't solve the problem. You cannot leave it like that. So I'll argue with that. And again, and again. Believe me, to take more time. And eventually, I'll be very angry and I'll function much worse in the meeting. It's much quicker, believe me, to let people talk. It's much quicker to deal with human problems than to say there are more problems which are more important than you. It's not because of my good manners. I found out it's much more efficient. So I got it, and I try. I don't say I'm good at that, but I try to let people talk. And when they talk, to listen to them. Because the main respect you show to a person if you listen to him. Sometimes I train lecturers. So they ask me, well, if they ask me such a question, what should I tell them? I said, the first thing, you should listen. 90% of the answer is to listen. What does it mean to listen? You show him that you understand his question. And you care about his question. And I want to tell you a beautiful story about that. That's I heard it as a real story. There was a guy after the Holocaust, and he became non-religious. He could not stand Yiddishkeit. He was so bitter against God. He lost his family. You can imagine what happened. And he used to be very religious before. So after the Holocaust, people, relatives, friends, they met him. They brought him to different rabbis. And they tried to explain him, why God sends Yisurim, suffering, meaning of life, etc. He wouldn't listen. And he had one verse he was repeating. He says, God took all the best ones and he left, the leftovers, like me. That's what he said all the time. Until one day someone told him, I'll bring you to the Kloisenberg Rebbe. The Rebbe from Kloisenberg, the Rebbe from Tzanz. He's a guy, he's an unbelievable holy person, and he lost his wife and 11 children in the Holocaust. After that he got married again, and he had another 4 children. By now he passed already. I had the chance to meet him, etc. So they introduced him, they brought him to the Tzanz Rebbe. So he got into the room, they left him. After 20 minutes, he came out crying. Didn't know what happened. And after a few days, he says, all right, now I come back to Yiddishkeit. It took a long time until he was ready to tell what happened there. So the Rebbe asked him, please tell me. So he said, God took all the good ones and he just left the leftovers, like me. That's what he did. So the Rebbe took his hand, hugged it. You don't know how right you are. You know how righteous Rabbonim Rebbes were before the Holocaust? And Rebbe took them. And you see what kind of rabbis he left? Like me, the leftovers. You wouldn't believe how right you are. And for 20 minutes, he was saying, Bonsham took the good ones and left the leftovers. He was crying for 20 minutes with him. That's it. And he was ready, was able to come back to Yiddishkeit. Why? He didn't answer his question. He was able to listen and to give them feeling that he cares about every word he says. This is respect. So we should know that respect is, first of all, is the ability to listen. I don't know if you know, sometimes when we deal with children education, we deal with the method of mirror. When the child is talking, you repeat about what he says, and then he is relieved many times. Just the fact that you listen to him, and by the fact that you repeat it, he sees that you really understood what he says. And this is what he cares, many times, much more than the answers. And sometimes we try to answer him and solve it. For example, the kid might come and say, the neighbor's kids, they hit me and so on. So you start giving advices. Sometimes you don't have to give advices. You just share with him. So you feel very sorry. It's hard. You're humiliated. They hit you. So I'm sure you feel very bad about it. That's a very general trick of education, that you have to share with him. Give him the feeling you listen. Repeating. This is known in education. But it's again, you respect him by listening, and I think an active listening. Now, sometimes when we say active listening, we have body language. Husband might read the newspaper and his wife is talking. Do you listen? Yes, of course, I can repeat every word you say. We're talking about active listening. With your face, looking at her. With your body language. I'm with you. I listen and I care about every word you say. There is a great rabbi in Israel. His midas is unbelievable. One of the fascinating things is to look at him as a shiur. If someone asks a question, it's like a show, Someone asks a question. He turns to him with all his body. And you can see, and he repeats a question, and he cares, and all his body language is unbelievable. How much he is listening and caring about the question of the student. Well, it's a big exception, but I want you to know that the art of listening, this is a big art. And if you listen, most of the time, it's much more important than solving the problems. It's more important than answering the question, and you show a lot of respect. This is one aspect of respect. The other aspect is not to pressure. Now, what does it mean not to put pressure? There is a concept that we'd like to be like God. There is a special mitzvah, a special commandment to be like God. Ve'alachta b'drachav. Be like God. It's very strange. How can I be like Him? And there is a book called Tomer Dvorah. And he shows that so many things we can learn from God. So one of the things is about pressure. You know that He could force us to do all the precepts in the world, but He does not. He let us choose. He showed the way, but He let us choose. Why? Because we are in the image of God. And being in the image of God, He respects me. And He says, if you are in the image of God, that means I'm not going to force you, because you should choose. So if I want to be like Him, I should not force people. And unfortunately, we are expert in putting pressure on people. Now, when we put pressure on people, especially husband or wife and vice versa, we have very sophisticated methods how to do that. The main thing, I manage to ask you to do things while giving you very bad feeling if you don't do it. So, on one hand, I just ask you, but I put a really pressure on you. Now, what would happen? I want to share with you a very interesting concept which I read in a book by Stephen Covey. It's not a Jewish book. What's wrong with that? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's a very famous book, I'm sure a lot of you read about. And it is